السيد ديفيد هانت، الرئيس التنفيذي لشركة PGIM. شكرا جزيلا لحضورك معنا على شاشة سكاي نيوز عربية. دعنا نبدأ وإياك بسبب وراء اختيار أبو ظبي كوجهة عالمية جديدة لPGIM اليوم.
Well, we have been absolutely thrilled with the week here, and I've been coming out to the region for more than a decade, and we've obviously managed money for clients in the region for more than 30 years. But over the last 3 or 4 years, the pace of change has really dramatically picked up. And what you can feel here in Abu Dhabi is the transformation of the economy, which has been in the plan for a while, but now you can really feel that it's reaching escape velocity. And so we felt that in order to really partner more closely with our core clients here, we really needed to have people on the ground to lead those relationships. And so this summer we did open our first office, which is our 43rd office around the world. And we couldn't be more delighted to be here and to be part of the celebrations this week.
الصندوق معروف بأنه هو الرابع عالميا في السندات. لديكم مراكز قوية إن كان بالبرايفت كريدت، بالانفراستراكشر، البنى التحتية، وحتى بالعقار. اليوم من مكانكم هنا، ما هي الأصول ربما أو القطاعات التي تنظروا للاستثمار فيها، وكيف لكم يعني من هذا الموقع أن يعني يكون لكم دخول أفضل وشركاء أفضل للمنطقة؟
So we do, as you point out, have very strong positions in the major, both public and private sectors. We're one of the leading bond managers, as you mentioned, but we're also the third largest real estate investor in the world. And we're a very large private credit manager. We have more than $100 billion in assets under management. And what we're seeing is that the entire private credit arena is undergoing a bit of a transformation. The banks around the world have been pulling back. They aren't lending to middle market companies the way that they used to. And many asset classes, which we would call asset-based finance, they also aren't participating in the same way. So whether that's aircraft leasing or rail leasing or consumer receivables. And so we and other asset managers are stepping into that. And it means that the private credit markets writ large are growing at one of the fastest rates within the asset management industry overall. So that will be a very large, I think, part of our growth as we look out over the next 10 years.
Very interesting. اليوم العالم يواجه العديد من التحديات، وكلها سيكون لها تأثير على موضوع الاستثمار وغيره. أهمها ربما الإدارة الأمريكية القادمة، وموضوع الرسوم الجمركية التي تحدث عنها دونالد ترامب، موضوع الجيوبوليتيكال تنشنز أو التوترات الجيوسياسية في كل العالم اليوم. من موقعك كيف سيتم التحوط ضد هذه المخاطر، وبالتالي كيف لها أن تؤثر على ما يسمى بالاستراتيجية الاستثمارية لPGIM؟
Well, there's no question as I travel the world talking to chief investment officers, they historically would ask me about the business cycle and interest rates and inflation. They ask me almost none of that today. They really focused on geopolitical risk. It's the number one thing that people are worried about because they look back over the last couple of years and it wasn't these things that really affected them. It was the pandemic. It was 2 wars that they didn't expect. And so they're keenly aware that their portfolios are not necessarily designed to be resilient to that. So we've been doing a lot of work with clients to say, well, how can you take the anxiety about political risk but tangibly improve your portfolio? And there are 2 big themes that come from that work. One is that you need to have more liquidity than you think, because we will have these big drawdowns, and if you can't move in size when that happens, you're going to miss a really important entry point. Some of the best markets that we had were 2009 after the GFC, 2022 after the pandemic, because we could get in at attractive prices, but you've got to have liquidity to do that. So that's one. And the second one is diversification. Many of our clients actually have not been as diversified as they need to be, given the fact that we are no longer completely globalizing, and we're globalizing kind of in different spheres. And so that whole need for diversification by country and by asset class is far greater than many people have expected so far. So those are the 2 things, liquidity and diversification, that are being impacted the most from the geopolitical risk.
إذا أنت برأيك أنه أكثر خطر يواجه الاستثمار اليوم هو التوتر الجيوسياسي. طب ما هو الخطر الثاني برأيك؟
So in general, I think that people are very concerned about the diverging economic prospects around the world. People don't really believe that Europe is going to see a lot of growth. Japan has done very well. They're very worried about China, and there's not new money really going into China right now. ASEAN has done better. They're quite excited about the Gulf region and the transformation that's happening here. But the standout has been the US. And so you really are seeing a capital rotation. But the fear that goes with that is people are over-allocated to the United States. And I think there is a lot of concern about how do you feel about that. But for the most part, nobody's found a better alternative at the moment.
إذا بسألك عن القطاعات أو الأسيت، يعني أنت تحدثت عن البرايفت كريدت، غير البرايفت كريدت، ما هي القطاعات التي تعتقد لها أنها ستكون نجمة الاستثمار خلال المرحلة القادمة؟
So the difficulty of investing in the current environment is that almost everything is really expensive. So we would argue that actually the overall economic picture is fine, but spreads are at all-time tights. Equities are at all-time highs. So you're really not getting paid to take very much risk. So we are actually running at about 50% of our risk limits at this point, not because we're worried about it, but because we don't think we're getting paid for the risk that we're taking. And so that means that less and less of the return going forward is going to be made up of just taking beta risk, and much more of it is going to be thematic. AI would be one of that, but the whole transition to a new energy future is going to be another one. And we're also seeing it in terms of the supply chain. And so those would be three that I would point out that are thematic in nature rather than by asset class, which we think will be a more powerful way to look at it.
يعني أنت قلق من التقييمات الحالية وبتعتبرها أن هي مرتفعة وممكن تكون مصدر خطر أيضا.
Well, the good news is that if you are a long-term investor, which we are and our clients are, that in general returns for these asset classes have been positive and quite happily positive for decades. And we believe that will continue. If you told me that you only have a one-year time horizon, then I'm a little bit worried about some of that because volatility will increase. One of the very strange phenomena that we see right now is we've talked a lot about the risks. Volatility is an all-time low.
Yes.
I mean, the VIX is really very moderated. So there's kind of a disconnect right now with risk. And I think we would argue that things are quite expensive and you're better off being moderate in your investment style and waiting for some of that volatility to give you an opportunity to get in.
أنت يعني في هذا الموقع حوالي 13 سنة، ستقوم بمغادرة منصبك في ماي كرئيس تنفيذي، ولكن ستبقى في مجلس الإدارة كرئيس لمجلس الإدارة. اليوم شو هي أهم مسج تستطيع أن ترسلها من هنا للقطاع، للزملاء، للمستثمرين؟
So the most important thing for our business, but I would argue for the investment business overall, is the culture that we have. That is the secret sauce to driving excess return. And what I mean by that is that there's no point in taking a position that is the consensus priced into the market. You must have non-consensus views, and you must have a culture that supports a non-consensus view while it is wrong for a long time until it is right. And that's very hard to have. And as you get bigger, it gets harder and harder to maintain that culture. And I think one of the things that I have been proud of is that we have grown quite dramatically over the last decade, but we've maintained our culture as an investment-led house. And so my message to the future leaders would be to continue that theme of culture and merit as the most important elements of it and non-consensus thinking, even while we go on to our next phase of significant growth.
Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you.
What a pleasure to have had you with us. And I really enjoyed the discussion. Thank you.